we're talking about like dispensationalism, right? And I think it's fair to say that dispensationalism, which is a sort of modern view, a modern way to view the Bible, has completely guided our foreign policy over the last 70, 80 years. And now you are seeing pushback from Christians, specifically Catholics and Reformed Protestants, against sort of this dispensational view of the Bible. And I think that's why you're seeing sort of a shift of Christians not supporting Israel on theological grounds anymore.
Sure. There's two different ways to support Israel. You can support the people of Israel, which I believe are the ones that fall under the Abrahamic covenant, which is the Jews, the people of the Jewish faith, right? Not secular Jews, not this nation state of Israel. That's more where I come from my arguments on it. But, you talk about dispensationalism and how, the Orthodox Church and the Catholic Church don't really align with the modern Zionism, and I think that you would be right. It's not as big of a percentage as I think a lot of people are inflating it to be. But the Second Vatican Council Declaration, Nostra Aetate, affirms God's covenant with the Jewish people has never been revoked. An official Catholic teaching holds the Old Covenant retains its value, and that the Jewish people remain most dear to God. So modern Catholic documents reaffirm that the abrogationist supersessionism, the view that Christianity has replaced Judaism entirely, lacks foundational Catholic doctrine.
Well, it's not a replacement, but I believe, I'm a Reformed Protestant, but the Catechism of the Catholic Church does hold the view that, like in the Pauline letters, like in Galatians, where the promises made to Abraham were fulfilled in Christ. That's the new covenant. And so,
and the argument that I would make, which is I guess you could call it the dispensationalist argument. It's not really, but you know what I'm saying, is under the Abrahamic covenant, it's an everlasting covenant, right? So, and if God is omnipotent, doesn't make mistakes, then he can't create an everlasting covenant that would have an end date. Right. So, and it wouldn't transfer, because if it would transfer, then they wouldn't have to create the new covenant. It would just be the same covenant.
Well, it is the same covenant. It's the overarching covenant of grace.
But why would it be called the new covenant?
Because it's still the same covenant between God and his people.
But new would mean different.
Well, new as in the old one has been fulfilled.
No,
the old promises made to Abraham.
We go right back to that. If the Abrahamic covenant is an everlasting covenant, it can't be fulfilled. It's everlasting.
So we have to define what the covenant is, and the covenant would be the definitive means of salvation.
Sure, and there's the argument that the people that are defined as Israel are now Christians. Right, and the Jews are not, and there's this that would be replacement theology, and I just think it's a lazy, a silly way to view the Bible, because there's so many references in the Bible that kind of refute that. There's Paul.
Yeah, I think you're right, Kellen. What?
Yeah, so and you know what? I actually don't want to say.
What are you talking? Are you just looking up Gaza? I thought you were looking up something.
Someone in chat said there's a McDonald's operating in Gaza. I don't think that's
Is that
I don't think that's
well,
true.
You know,
I'm trying to confirm.
They just spent $50,000 on a rooftop. They just spent $50,000 on a rooftop party in Gaza, and that's on video.
There's a roof in Gaza?
Yeah, there's one left.
Wow.
There's one left, and if you went over there and you
they would throw me off, wouldn't
they? They would literally fucking kill you. Yeah, they would throw you off.
I know. The IDF would.
You do have to admit that
argument,
argument, though, Rathbone, and I see a lot of people make it. It's that Tel Aviv is arguably one of the gayest cities in America. Is one of the gayest. Obviously very friendly to the gays, and a lot of progressives are very pro-gay. And then you see Hamas, and culturally, Islam is not necessarily Sharia law.
I think then we should bomb their entire.
No, I agree. I don't think we should bomb them
because of how they domestically look at their culture.
But you can see how that argument does kind of create,
sure. But I also don't think that Israel is sympathetic to gays necessarily, because gay marriage is outlawed.
Yeah, you are right about that. Yeah. But it's just they are more friendly to gays. So you see that argument from the left, where it's hey, if you're pro LGBTQ, then why would you be pro Palestine? I'm just saying that is a tough argument, because you're like. Because I debate both sides. We're having a debate.
To me, it's not a good argument, because you're trying to run cover for the IDF bombing indiscriminately.
When you say indiscriminately, right, what do you mean by that?
I mean,
Like
that they
blowing up
use-
hospitals on TV.
Well, indiscriminately.
I mean, look at
would
the
mean wherever. Yeah, we
right here. This all
Well,
the.
they admit, though, Misfit, that they make mistakes, and sometimes
Yeah,
it was
no,
a mistake we bombed that Catholic church. It was a mistake that we bombed
Look,
the
You see, negligence
hospital.
is not a. Is still
But I don't think they're making mistakes. I
No,
think that
I
they're
think it's-
very talented and know what the hell they're doing.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you can make that argument that there's mistakes that happen in war, and I think that would be a valid argument.
If this
I
was
think
a
that you
war.
should, I think that you should call them out when they do something wrong, and I think that you should.
No, you don't.
Well, Brethren, you made a good point. Is this a war? Because if it's an asymmetrical power struggle where one person has all the bombs and the other people have no food, how is this a war, right? I mean,
Yeah.
doesn't a war have to be a little more 50-50, 60-40 if it's
Right.
99 versus 1%?
Again,
Well,
yeah.
are you saying that if a weaker enemy commits that act that was
Well, it's like you're saying how they're not even a country. Well, then in that case, they're not even an enemy, and then they shouldn't even be fighting.
Well,
them,
I mean, one could make the argument that it is a civil war.
Well, the Jews in Auschwitz were a weaker enemy, so I think maybe, according to your argument, we should more of them should.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a.
we should just terror bomb
If you
Auschwitz,
look at it that,
carpet
if you look
bomb
at it
Auschwitz.
that way, right? The Jews were where was the Jews' army? What
Exactly.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying, did they have
They had a resistance movements, yes.
what was the resistance movement for?
Well,
the
I
Jews?
mean, famously, you had the Jewish resistance in the Warsaw Ghetto in 1943,
So
and
one-
that was
one
an
ghetto.
atrocity.
Yeah, well, listen, they weren't able to fight back. They had
But
to
I'm saying, was
hide.
there-
I mean,
Well, yeah, according to your argument, if they're not able to fight back, they're
is
just a
Hamas-
weaker enemy. They deserve it.
Is Hamas a resistance group, aka militia, aka military? If it is, then there's a military.
It's
Fucking great.
It
Let's
might
go.
they
Let's see
might
who
they
wins.
might they're an armed resistance group, but I wouldn't classify them as the Wehrmacht or the Russian army or anything like this. So they don't have the infrastructure. They've been denied,
argument
and
is
that's the
that
thing
they're
is that
weaker.
Israel has denied them military infrastructure, healthcare infrastructure, education infrastructure.
Denied? What do you mean
all
denied?
of these by bombing them relentlessly, and this is all before October 7th. I'm talking about going back decades. 2014 Operation Protective Edge, worst atrocity since October 7th, since this current
was a
genocide.
which was a response to an attack.
And no, it wasn't. It was not. It was a pretext for a larger invasion, and that same thing played out in Operation Cast Lead in 2009. I mean, it's what the Israelis acknowledge as mowing the lawn. They have to periodically go in there and mow the lawn. And what does mow the lawn mean? It means massacre a bunch of people, destroy all their buildings, and then blockade them from having access to actually reconstruct
See,
their
we're never going
society.
to be able to get anywhere in this conversation because earlier you said that Hamas is not a terrorist group, right?
They're an armed resistance
They're
group.
an armed resistance group, right?
Yeah,
And I
because
think
they're an
I think that
occupied
that's-
people.
So you said earlier.
They're an occupied people.
You said earlier that you
I,
are,
the IDF is a terrorist group.
you said earlier that you were in the majority. You're like, I'm in the majority. That they're losing the
on
war.
TikTok, I think it's 80% pro-Palestine.
Yeah, but TikTok is a
It
TikTok is a
I know, I'm
communist
just using
Chinese
that.
run fucking.
But it's just a way to run a litmus
psyop.
test of kind
Yeah.
of seeing where people's opinions
But I mean,
are.
look, let's talk about that real quick, right? These online polls, you guys are living, not you guys, but people. Some people are living in the online world, and they're not in the real
I agree
world.
with that. There's a different world
Right,
than Twitter.
it is a
in the real world.
completely different world. When you take a poll on X, how many people that are
that's
voting
not-
on it are bots? How many people are voting on it are on 50 different
Yeah, but
accounts?
Israel's
voting?
not losing the propaganda war just because of bots. They're
No,
trying
no,
to blame
I
it all
think
on
that-
bots.
I think
That's
that-
they probably have the most bots.
Well, it's fair to say
yeah.
too, like among Gen Z, I think Israel's support is completely collapsed.
It's-
On the right,
I go to these calls.
I would- I would-
Zach,
I would agree
Zach,
with
that.
that.
That's why I'm getting kind
I
of
would
more
agree with that.
radicalized because I do believe in Israel's, right to survive. I do believe that they should have a piece of the pie there, but I also believe in a two-state solution. I believe the Palestinians should have a
well,
right
and that's
to
what
be
I think
there, too.
this kind of gets at it is like I think for Israel they do feel like there is a time, like they have a limited amount of time to make these.
Well, they just
sort
did
of
the red
operations.
heifer, and you saw Adam King talk about this.
I was
There. So
sitting
now
right
they're trying to
here.
build the third temple. So, I mean, obviously they have
Bring that up again.
they have some big plans. But real quick, now let's talk about because we're talking about the propaganda war. Zach, I want to get your opinion on this. And I know this isn't necessarily Israel Palestine, but doesn't it frustrate you when you see this guy Tom Alexander, who's a cybersecurity executive for Benjamin Netanyahu, gets caught in a pedophile sting? And I'm not even really mad that they extradited him. I kind of understand they want to protect him. He's an important guy. But what makes me mad is that you haven't seen any mainstream media coverage of this. Have you noticed that? I know you and I see it a lot on Twitter, but you're not seeing it to a level that if this was a Russian cybersecurity, if this was a Palestinian cybersecurity directive, if this was a cybersecurity directive for basically any other country, it would have been you couldn't have not heard about it, but instead you have people like me, that don't have that many followers and smaller accounts sharing this. Don't you think it's kind of weird that stuff like that happens and it's not a bigger story?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily weird what happened. First of all, I want to clarify. I think that this guy should be buried underneath a prison, right? So this is not a defense of the man, right? He's a disgusting pedophile and well, from, let's say, innocent till proven guilty, but pretty sure he's guilty. So what I'm saying is I don't think it's strange that he went back to Israel because he's from Israel, right? That he went through the process.
I'm talking more about the media coverage of it.
Oh, the media coverage on it. No, they should cover it. They should absolutely cover it. But you know what? I like it when things are covered evenly and equally, right? They're covering, if they were to cover only him and leave out the fact that a pastor was also arrested in that sting, right? So the argument that...
But the pastor didn't work for, Billy Graham. He wasn't Joel Osteen's pastor. I mean,
so,
this is just...
But the argument that I'm seeing online, and I know that this is kind of separate from the media coverage, which I think they should cover it. Absolutely. They should definitely cover it. And I don't know why they're not covering it. And maybe you have an actual argument.
Maybe Israel has a lot of power in our media.
Maybe you have an argument for Israel's like, don't talk about that shit. And I think that's wrong. So we can agree there. But I think that some of the rhetoric online is that there's some grand conspiracy, and I don't see that. What I don't see is some like the Jews pulled some strings and that's why. No, he was arrested, arraigned, indicted, and let go under the same conditions as everyone else in that sting.
That is true.
They didn't take anyone's passport. They didn't restrict anyone's travel, and that's common for that area. Like that's common for that.
Listen, I'm familiar with bonds. You got a $10,000 bond. He is technically allowed to leave if the judge didn't give him a restriction, which that was the case. But
here's when you'll hear me going like full send on agreement with all these other people. If he does not come back for his trial, and Israel does not extradite him, then you'll hear me make an argument that that's absolutely fucking bullshit. You can't do that. We get him back here now, or we'll have a problem with Israel.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon, so subscribe and come hang out.